All right, I wanted to make a video here about using the emotional intelligence tools that I've learned. I am currently experiencing fear because I signed up for an improv comedy class and tomorrow is the showcase. Showcase meaning like the show, the time where we're gonna go and do improv comedy for the first time in front of a crowd of strangers. And I am experiencing fear. And I wanna take you through and share the tools that I use in my head to emotionally regulate. I also have a gnat infestation, so look out for that. So first I'll say I've been experiencing anxiety about this for basically since I signed up for the class, which was like 8 weeks ago. And I've been taking this class for 6 weeks, and now when I'm doing improv comedy in my class, it feels safe and I'm not scared. But I've been kind of dreading this new environment where I'm gonna have to perform in front of people. I'm sure, anybody watching is probably resonating with how scary this can be, performing in front of a group of people, trying to be funny, right, for the first time. So, what I will say is that I know that I'm experiencing fear because for me, when I think about this showcase, I notice tightness in my chest, I notice my breathing gets shallower, and I notice that I will, go reach for my phone and open up Instagram and start scrolling. Like, that's a combination of feelings that I have over time through kind of self-awareness and mindfulness and pattern recognition have realized that is how my body sends me a message of fear, which is, I think the same is true with anxiety, right? Anxiety is kind of fear of the future. And for me, I guess I'm anxious about this, but it's also just like fear kind of now since the showcase is tomorrow, right? So what I do with that is up to me, right? So I'm experiencing fear. Something I've learned is that I can have a relationship with fear similar to how I can have a relationship with a person, right? So I have come to see fear as not a bad thing, but a message that my brain and body are sending me, right? It's a message. I've started to view fear, or really any emotion, as similar to a notification from an app on my phone, right? So when I am on my phone, AKA just existing in the world, that's the parallel I'm drawing here, and I get a notification on my phone, that's a message. An app is trying to, give me information of some sort. Maybe it's, hey, someone texted you, or hey, your credit score has changed, or whatever, right? My body does that with felt sensations, basically. So fear is like an app that sends me notifications, and it's trying to send me information. So when I feel tightness in my chest and shortness of breathing, and I have a tendency of this kind of avoidance where I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna grab my phone, like something feels wrong, I don't like it, I'm gonna kind of numb out by going on my phone. That's my body sending me a notification. So I have a choice. I can swipe the notification away, pretend like it never happened, and be like, okay, I'm gonna avoid this. I'm going to be distracted. I'm gonna intentionally distract myself so that I don't feel the emotion anymore, right? That is something that doesn't actually address the root of the problem. Because I never get the information that my body was trying to send me, right? If I just distract myself, and that some people would say that energy gets trapped and that my body didn't really ever resolve any of those feelings and those sensations, so they stay there. I don't know if that's exactly what I believe happens to me, but I still believe in general as a just kind of a tenet of my life that I want to deal with problems at the root level and not just manage the symptoms, right? So managing the symptoms of fear might be distract, forget, avoid, do something else until you're not thinking about it anymore, right? These are all very common things and I do them too, right? But for me, that feeling keeps coming up because I'm like, oh, what am I doing tomorrow evening? Oh, I have my improv showcase. Like, that's gonna suck, right? That's where my mind goes, is like, oh, and then that fear comes back. So here's what I have been doing to kind of get to the root of that problem. First of all, the viewing fear as like having a relationship with fear and viewing it not as a negative emotion, but as just a messenger, that has been super helpful for me, and it helps me deal with fear and relate to it. So first thing I'm gonna do when I am trying to get to the root of this fear is to acknowledge that fear is here with me, right? The character that I've created of fear is like an entity outside of myself. And so I'll say, hello, fear, like, welcome, right? Thank you for sending me this message. I appreciate that you're trying to keep me safe, right? Fear is an evolutionary feature. It's not a bug. And I appreciate that I experience fear, right? It's something I want to experience because it's a message I want to be receiving if something's wrong, right? Or if something's potentially dangerous. So I welcome fear and I say, what do you want to tell me, right? Where's the danger, right? And I understand that when this message is coming in, I'm kind of viewing it from my when this message comes in from fear, I'm viewing it with kind of a critical eye, because sometimes my brain and body can send kind of a false positive alert, right? Maybe it can say, hey, look out for some danger, when in reality there's, it's not dangerous. So that's what I'm looking out for. So I go kind of internal and I say, hello, fear, what message are you trying to send to me? And the kind of image that pops up into my head is me at this improv showcase on the stage, looking out over the audience, and it's my turn to, say something funny, and I'm blanking, right? I have no idea what to say. Maybe I'm stuttering. Maybe I'm just shocked, right? And everyone's looking at me and I'm blowing it, right? So when that image comes up, it's hard to look directly at it, right? It's hard to be like, this is the thing I'm afraid of, because it's fear, right? We don't want to be looking directly at the thing that we're scared of, because it's an unpleasant emotion. But if you can get past that, there's a valuable nugget of information in there, and that's the key to regulating emotionally in my experience. So I see what I'm afraid of is not the improv showcase. It's of failing publicly, right? That's what the image was that came up in my brain. Like, what's the worst case scenario? I'm talking to fear. What's the worst case scenario that could happen? Failing publicly, right? And to me, internally, this makes sense, right? I'm a high achieving person. For a long time, my internal brain associated safety with achievement and success and perfectionism and being the kind of person who never makes a mistake, right? I know that about myself. So when I ask my fear, where's the danger? Hey, you might make a big mistake here in front of a lot of people and everyone might see you do that, right? That to me is congruous. And when I dig further and I talk to fear and I say, why would that be so bad? This picture of me failing in public, why would that be so bad? What would that mean about me? What's the meaning associated with this, right? And I'll, I can take a deep breath and I can just listen and see what comes up, right? It's amazing to me, by the way, when I do this, you get answers, or I get answers, right? And I'm sure you would too. Like something comes up first thing. Don't think too much about it, but what comes up for you? For me, what would be so bad about that, right? And this is where some people, with when you're scared and you might go to someone else and say, hey, I'm scared about this thing. What are the kind of platitudes that people might give you, right? One of them is, oh, everyone's scared before a performance. For me, that's not helpful. Like I've had a lot of people tell me that, or, everyone's scared of this, or everyone's anxious of this. I don't care. Like I don't want to be experiencing this thing right now. And I really don't care that everyone else feels that way too. So that to me is not helpful. Maybe for you, it would be helpful to think, oh, this is normal. Everyone feels this way. For me, that's not the answer. I still am feeling fear when someone tells me that. Something else that someone might say is, oh, what's the worst that can happen? Like everyone will just kind of laugh it off. It'll be fine. The crowd isn't, the crowd is there to laugh. Their expectations aren't very high. Like nobody's gonna get up and laugh at you and post your video on, social media and it'll get a million likes of everyone making fun of you. Like that's just not realistic, right? And so that's another thing someone might say is they're like, hey, you shouldn't be feeling fear because it'll be okay. It's low stakes, those kinds of things, right? It'll be okay. That's not reassuring to me. Because again, I'm still feeling fear. I'm like, but what if it isn't? What if it's not okay? That's where my brain goes, right? And so what I want to do internally is go to that place. And again, it stinks and it's not fun, but it's so helpful and hopefully you'll see why. So I go to that place. I ask fear, why would that be so bad? What's the meaning that we're making out of this, right? And all the stuff everyone else has told me doesn't help. This is where I'm going with it now, as kind of a last resort. And fear would say to me, this is coming up in my brain, why would that be so bad? It would be so bad because if that happened, I know, or my fear thinks that I would ruminate on that and use that moment as a reason to withhold love from myself. Basically, I fear the real fear, the thing that would really suck if I failed publicly, is that my inner critic would destroy me internally. I would just have these constant thoughts, if this happened, of, you're not good at that, or like, man, everyone was laughing at you, like that felt awful, or you're not good enough to be up on stage, or why did you do that? You knew it wasn't gonna go well. You put yourself in harm's way. Like, why did you do that? Like, that was dumb. You're an idiot. You didn't learn fast enough how to be good at improv comedy. Right? We can come up with a million things that this inner critic might say, right? Ultimately, it's if I mess up, then I fear that I will be very mean to myself. And then I'll be living in this cage of like insecurity and just unpleasantness, maybe forever, right? Like there's that kind of, this is definitely in that genre of things that like I might, wake up in the middle of the night 30 years from now being, embarrassed, ashamed, terrified of that happening, right? Does that make sense? Like the fear that I actually have, because I talked to fear, I understand that my fear isn't really of messing up or of even going to this showcase at all. My fear is treating myself poorly afterwards. If things don't go well, if they're not good enough, then my inner critic is going to just make my life hell. That's what I'm afraid of. So, it's incredibly, to me, fulfilling and freeing to know, to have clarity about what is at the root of this fear, right? So, the root of this fear, no, never mind. I won't go that in that direction. So, now I know. I say fear. I totally understand where you're coming from. I understand that in the past, when I have failed, I have then beat myself up for it. And when I beat myself up for it, it was a very unpleasant and, lonely and disparaging, dark, negative experience. And you, by bringing me this message, by making me feel tight in the chest and making my breath short and, making me reach for my phone, like you're trying to let me know that, hey, this might happen again. That's what the fear notification is telling me is, hey, you've got this thing coming up, and if it doesn't go well, just be aware your inner critic might act up and put us back in that bad headspace, right? So now that we've kind of we've looked directly at the fear, this is sometimes called shaking hands with the emotion, right? You're shaking hands with the emotion, you're saying, you're looking at it. You're not looking away, you're not scrolling your phone, you're looking at the fear and you're having a conversation. You're saying, what is this about? If this thing happened, what would that mean? Why would that be so bad, right? And you get to the root, and you know what? It's for me, it has always been an internal thing at the very core. What am I afraid of? The inner critic. I'm not afraid of people making fun of me. I'm afraid of me making fun of myself, right? And disrespecting myself and me not feeling loved and cared for in my own skin, right? That's 1,000 times scarier than what other people might say, or if people, make fun of me or laugh at me or whatever, right? That's how it feels for me. The good news and the payoff for doing this hard work is that I ultimately believe that I'm in control of the thoughts in my head. And so I can make a commitment to myself, and I can make a commitment to fear, this entity I've been having a conversation with, that I am committed to offering myself love and treating myself with respect, accepting myself fully, embracing myself exactly as I am, no need to be any different. I've done a lot of work to get to this point, but loving myself in any circumstance, no matter what, is something that I am 100% committed to. And I wasn't committed to that in the past, and that's why my brain is sending me signals like, hey, inner critic might show up. But guess what? When inner critic does show up, I now have the skill set and tools to say, hey, I'm not gonna believe that. If I have a thought that comes up that says, why did you do that? That was stupid. I switch it and say, and I think of it from a different point of view. Instead of the inner critic character, I think of a really loving and compassionate character, like a parent, a grandparent, a romantic partner, or a best friend, right? And I think, what would they say? And they would say, hey, you tried something and it didn't go super well and it didn't go the way you wanted it to, and that's okay. Like, we all make mistakes, it's totally fine, and I still love you anyway. And that's me talking to myself, right? I'm offering myself love and acceptance and respect regardless of what happens externally, right? So if I go up there and make a complete fool out of myself, maybe it's 10 times worse than I was expecting, 10 times worse than I even feared, right? Maybe I go up there and, say something that is, accidentally inconsiderate, and half the crowd gets offended and sees me as, this bad guy, right? Like, that would suck too. That would be even worse than me just embarrassing myself, right? I am committing right now, here in this conversation with fear, I'm committing to offering myself love, forgiveness, grace. How would I'm committing to treating myself like I would treat a loved one, right? So if this awful thing happened, this embarrassing thing happened to a loved one, how would I respond? I would respond with, hey, it's okay. Like, yeah, that wasn't fun, but I still love you, right? It's unconditional love. That's what I'm extending to myself. And when I say that, like, my chest opens up, I can breathe more deeply, and I feel so fulfilled. I don't need to avoid that feeling anymore, right? Because it was just a notification. I clicked on it, we went in, we dealt with the problem, which is, I don't believe that my brain is going to offer me unconditional love. That's what I was afraid of. And I'm committing in this moment that if and when something does happen that's embarrassing or shameful, or makes me feel small or pathetic or whatever it is, I'm going to love myself like I'm, the love of my life, right? That's how I'm going to treat myself. And when fear understands that, fear says, okay, that sounds good to me, right? I don't need to worry anymore. I don't need to send you these messages, because the message I'm sending to myself and to all the parts of me, the fear and the, subconscious brain and all these things, is, I got you, right? I am going to make sure that no matter what happens externally, this is out of my control. Whatever happens tomorrow at the Improv Showcase is out of my control. But no matter what happens, what's in my control is that I am going to love and accept myself and give myself grace and not judge myself no matter what. And just going through this exercise right here, I'm feeling different. And if that fear comes up again, I can kind of tell myself more briefly, now that I understand what's going on, I can kind of just give a little shorthand like, hey, I got you. It's going to be okay. Not because of the external, because I don't know about the external. It could actually go really poorly. But no matter what, it's going to be okay, because I am committing to treating myself with love and care and kindness. And that's what it comes down to. And if fear needs a couple reminders over the course of the next day, like, that's totally fine. Having the ability to emotionally regulate is not going to decrease how often I feel fear, right? The fear is still coming up. That's not the goal. The goal is not to not feel fear. The goal is, when fear comes up, I deal with it effectively and quickly, right? This has been a fairly short example. And in real life, the more I do it, the quicker it happens. I say, boom, this is actually what that's about. And if that happens, I'm going to love myself anyway. And that's what this is about. And I feel better. And that's what emotional regulation looks like for me and fear in this moment. So I hope that was helpful. And wish me luck tomorrow.